This episode is brought to you by FX's feud, Capote versus the Swans. Inspired by actual events, the series tells the story of Truman Capote and the women he betrayed. The original housewives. They were society's most elite women. Rich, glamorous socialites who defined a bygone era of high society New York. From creator Ryan Murphy, this drama series features an all-star cast, including Naomi Watts, Demi Moore, and Diane Lane. FX's feud premieres January 31st on FX Stream on Hulu.
This is Central Texas Living with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ann Harder. Welcome to Central Texas Living, the podcast. 43 years ago, a couple of fossil and arrowhead hunters, Paul Barron and Eddie Buffkin, found a bone in a ravine near the Bosque River. They took it to Baylor, and an expert confirmed it was, in fact, the femur of a Columbian mammoth. That discovery led to the unearthing of a unique group of fossils and the establishment of a new national monument in Waco. Joining me now is Raegan King, who is site director for the Waco Mammoth National Monument. It is so good to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, Raegan, I had the privilege of coming to visit the Waco Mammoth National Monument and shoot a segment for Traveling Texas with Ann Harder on KXXV. And I said these have kind of become my bucket list check off of things that I wanted to do, haven't had time to do it for whatever reason. And I have reported a million stories, I think, on the mammoth side, on the beginning. I mean, from the get-go. And yet I hadn't been out there. And so it was so amazing to get to come and see what all has happened. Tell me, what is it about this whole work that intrigues you the most?
My job?
Yeah.
I'm one of those lucky people who loves my job,
yeah.
And I'm able to use the degrees I got in college to do my job. I actually went to the Smithsonian Museum as a 7th grader. And fell in love. And of course, the Natural History Museum, the first thing you see is the world's largest taxidermy elephant. Off to the left, the Hall of Fossils. Off to the right, Hall of Mammals. Well, I liked furry critters, so I went to the Hall of Mammals, and a docent had a skin out for me for the visitors to look at. And I reached to touch it, and she kind of smacked my hand and said,
"Don't you touch?
Don't touch. Only the people who work here get to touch these things." I said, "That's it."
Then that's what I'm going to do.
I want to work at a museum. Yep.
Yeah.
So this is just luck that I found this job, and also a lot of good fortune that it happens to be about mammals, specifically elephants, right here in Waco. I did not come to Waco just for this job. I just got very, very lucky.
Well, the fact that this is a nursery herd, which it makes it unique. Because, there are other mammoth sites. Lubbock has, I think, mammoth fossils.
Yep. And,
of course, New Mexico and Nevada, I think, in the kind of California, a couple of sites. But this one is unique.
This one is. And it's funny you said Lubbock because they installed their mammoth statues the year after I left grad school there.
Oh, so you were
Yes.
at Tech. Okay.
So our nursery herd is unusual in that it is the only nursery herd of Columbian mammoths in North America. Of course, Columbian mammoths only exist in North America, so that, is true. However, 2 nursery herds of woolly mammoths were discovered in Serbia and Siberia, I believe, but that was after our discovery in 78. So we're still first. We're still the only Columbian mammoth nursery herd, but really it's the level of preservation, which is what makes it unusual. The entire herd, that's moms and babies together, died at the same time and were covered most likely by the back flooding of the Bosque River. And it was fairly simultaneous because we have lots of different ages. Our matriarch, that's like the grandma of the herd, she was probably in her 50s. And we have young mammoths, around 5-6 years old possibly. And that's much like a modern day elephant herd. And no other fossil site has this assemblage, this group of mammoths that basically prove that mammoths acted like modern day elephants, the way we watch those herds function. Those are moms and babies, and we have that here. So it teaches us how these animals interacted with each other and how they interacted with their environment. Fossils are found all the time. Mammoth fossils are not uncommon in North America. Usually it's just a tooth or a tusk, but we just have the right set of circumstances right here in this little spot in Waco for the really amazing preservation. And it didn't happen just once either.
Right. It was a dramatic event that happened that killed all of these animals at one time.
It had to have been because it's such a large group. That first round of excavation, I'd say throughout the 80s actively and part of the 90s, was 16 mammoths. And mammoths are not small critters.
No.
So Baylor said every time they go out there, they were finding a new mammoth.
Yeah.
So
well,
I
had a chance to visit with your paleontologist.
Yes.
And that's another rather unique thing, in that there are only, I think, 3 in the nation.
There's not that many.
PhD paleontologists, and Waco has one of them.
Yes.
And she told me that every time it rains really hard, she'll go down in that ravine and check and see if there are more bones, fossils exposed.
Right.
I think that's remarkable. This is still an active working site.
Absolutely. There's no telling what else is out there. We are positive there is more still buried. We're not completely sure the extent within our lands. We have 107 acres, and only less than an acre has been dug up. We have found 24 mammoths, 3 camels, a cat, a horse, a bison, and a saber-toothed cat. So we have so much fossil and it's most of what is still in the ground is covered up. But you're right, we have an outdoor area too, where the water is always running on rainy days in Texas. It's all going to flow into the Bosque River downhill, and we have to go check the ravine. You never know what's going to wash out. That's actually how we were discovered. Bones were washed out.
How long have you been with the mammoth site?
This will be my 9th year.
I was going to say, you are not a newcomer.
No.
To Central Texas and to this whole work. But as I said at the beginning, 43 years ago, the first discovery was made. Let's go back to that and talk a little bit about these two guys. And what they saw exposed, they first thought was a human skull.
Well, yes. That's probably why they reported their find.
Oh, really?
Yeah, most people, when they find fossils, they either leave it or take it home and kind of forget about it. But this one really had their attention, and they were a little worried. They said, "Oh goodness, we need to bring this to somebody's attention." And the femoral head of a mammoth leg bone is about the same size as the top of your head.
So they see this and they go, "Oh my gosh, what have we got?"
Yep.
And then I guess as they started digging, then they were really saying, "Oh my gosh," because it's a huge bone.
Right.
They knew it wasn't just a modern day
critter. Something very large that they didn't know about, so they went to the local expert at the Strecker Museum then. And I was lucky enough to have known the then director of the Strecker Museum, Calvin Smith. I did a student project as an undergrad, and he helped. So David Lentz was the guy that identified that bone for Paul and Eddie. Turns out David went through the same museum science program I did at Texas Tech. So, the museum realm, I guess, especially in Texas, I guess we all know each other. That was one of the reasons I was so excited to come to Waco, was I already had some museum connections.
Yeah, and a lot of life is, who do you know?
Yeah.
And is familiar with you. And I think that's great. And we were so blessed when we came to shoot the piece that we were able to go down actually to the dig level.
That is a rare thing, yes.
Not very many people have gotten to do that. And it is just remarkable, because the closer you are, then you see just how big these animals were.
Yes. Like a tusk of our male mammoth that's laying there. It's about as big around as a dinner plate. And you just don't understand that when you're standing about 12 feet above it looking down. But one of the neatest things that happened, I'd say about 2 or 3 years ago, is we got Calvin to come back for our anniversary, and he went down into the bone bed, and it was just so neat to see him down there again. Because I've seen all the pictures from the 90s.
He was like a kid in a candy shop.
He was so excited. Yep.
Well, and it is still a working site.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk a little bit about the work that's being done. Plaster jackets. What is that?
What is that?
Tell us what a plaster jacket is.
Alrighty, so imagine walking into a creek bed, seeing a big leg bone,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sitting on the earth. It's very fragile, so the earth is actually supporting it and preventing it from falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
So what you'll do is excavate, dig the dirt around the sides of it, and go down below it, a few inches. And then you'll go over that, including the bone and the dirt on the sides, and cover that in burlap with plaster. And it's like making a cast on a broken bone.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps you from hurting your broken arm, right? Well, that plaster cast keeps those bones from moving around and getting further damage. So once you have it all covered up, you literally pick it up, flip it, cover it up, dirt and all. And then you can transport that back to the museum or to your lab. And I believe we had over 90 plaster jackets at some point in storage, then at the Strecker, and then what became the Mayborn Museum. And our paleontologist, those have been basically sitting there. Very few had been opened over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the largest parts of her job right now. Our special resource study, whenever we were looking for designation in the Park Service, our special resource study said it would take one person over 20 years to prepare to open up and study and clean all the remains that are in plaster jackets. So a continuous working site means you kind of have to judge what you already have out and where your status is on that versus is it worth it right now to go get more?
I guess that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because she's got her work cut out for her. Just
She does.
with what's at the Mayborn.
Yes. Yeah. We have just cases and cases of not only plaster jackets, but loose material, lots and lots of loose material.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets to study that, look for any kind of clues as to which animal it might belong to. And she also, that's her research specialty, is looking at these prehistoric Ice Age animals and how they interact with their environment.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out they ate hackberry. They're very similar to what we know now.
Yeah. Well, and that leads me to the next thing I want to talk about. It is a lovely area, 108 acres you have of woodlands there along the Bosque. But you've got some lovely walking paths and other trails, right? Hiking people can do. And I just think maybe a lot of folks don't realize it's more than just the bones, which is the fossils are the thing.
That's the main attraction.
That's the main attraction, but it's just a lovely area out there, a picnic area, and and it's all shady. And I know you've gotten a lot of help from volunteers, from Eagle Scouts.
Yes, we have just had, I think, our 4th Eagle Scout project this past past
Good
spring.
for them.
But yeah, I mean, any kind of outdoor activities that can extend a visitor's stay is something that we wanted to bring to the park after designation.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right, we're kind of a one-trick pony. You come to see the fossils and then you leave. You could spend 5 minutes if you really wanted to jet out of there, or we would prefer you spend a little longer, talk to the rangers, and enjoy more of the nature of the park, because it is beautiful. We are exactly in between the Bosque and the Brazos rivers. So we have a lot of trees, a lot of water, a lot of wildlife. And those trails that our Eagle Scouts have put in help people, discover that.
Well, I think it was at the honey locust tree.
Mm-hmm.
Is there still there specimens of that? They're still growing like they did, thousands of years ago.
We get so many questions about what are those trees with thorns? Like the thorns on the honey locust tree will get thorns off of them. And they're enormous.
And somehow those prehistoric camels ate it.
Yes. Yeah, they were tough.
Well, it's and you've got live oak. I think a live oak that was dated to about the time of the Constitution. And when you put the historical aspect of what you're looking at, and what a great resource for families with kids to kind of help bring this aspect of history alive.
We enjoy family groups for sure, because the adults and some of the older kids really will understand fossils. Ice Age fossils, mammoths, but little kids, they think any bone in the ground is a dinosaur.
Right.
Yeah, dinosaurs died 65 million years ago. Our mammoths died 65,000 years ago, so there's a huge difference. But to see that excitement, we want those kids to grow up to want to protect fossils like this, but also know the importance of protecting the general environment. So the Park Service is primarily about resource protection, but now our entire park is considered a resource. So we try to leave things as pristine as it is right now, as it was in the past. You've heard a lot of stuff in the news lately about hikers, pack it in, pack it out.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Take your trash with you. You can't just toss a
Please.
banana peel and hope that it decomposes. It's going to take, 5 years. It's not quite what you think it is. So pack it in, pack it out. We're teaching kids principles like leave no trace, preservation, and of course the importance of preserving fossils, because those fossils will be here long after we're gone, and that's our purpose.
You have a lot of folks come visit. I know the pandemic, has messed everything up, and I know it had an impact on your attendance. But normally, what do you have?
Normally, we get about 100,000 guests a year.
Wow,
which is amazing for
That's
a tiny little
great.
park. When we were a city park prior to federal designation, we were getting about 20,000 visitors a year.
Really?
So we already were getting visitors from all U.S. states and many foreign countries. I think our yearly record was 72 foreign countries in a year. But now we're still getting those visitors from all of those places. It's just more of them from all of those places, tenfold or fivefold more. It's amazing.
So that National Park Service designation is a big deal.
Yeah, very much.
So there is a charge to come to see the fossils?
There is a charge for the tour, basically the access to the bone bed, because it's inside that building. And that is our primary means of preserving those fossils, is controlling access. And you'll always have an experienced ranger nearby to help out and explain things. So our ticket prices are $5 or less per person. We really keep it affordable. It's pretty similar to other prices of tours at national parks.
You mentioned the park rangers. So I had a chance to visit with Bryson,
Right.
And he was great. I mean, he really knew his stuff. But recently moved here. I mean, hasn't been in Central Texas.
Right.
Although he knew everything he needed to know about about it. And so it's a great resource for folks to ask questions. Do you find folks do want to ask questions, or they come in and look, go, okay, I see the mammoth there, and then leave, or how?
It's really a mix of both. And prior to the COVID shutdown, we were doing only guided tours. So a ranger-led guided tour for a group of 20 or so people, went with one ranger, and they were kind of a captive audience. And we always get wonderful reviews. That was the best tour I ever had. So I can admit that I thought the main experience was mostly this amazing tour, because all of our tour guides love these bones so much and want to tell you all about them. And with the COVID shutdown, after we reopened, we're actually still limited in that firsthand teaching and interpretation and tour giving, program giving. So we're not doing that. And it worried me as, the site manager. I thought, oh no, these people just aren't going to get the experience that they could have had before. But boy, I'll tell you, I was wrong. People still come out of that building and think, oh my gosh, that was the coolest thing I've seen. And some people will come back and ask questions, but we do have some good museum quality interpretive panels around the park explaining some stuff. So
Right.
But yeah.
And you've also got access to the app, and that's another
that's
really
very
good
new.
tool for folks.
Right. So the National Park Service put out an app, and all units of the National Park Service have pages basically in the app. And there's 423 units of the National Park Service. And honestly, we get about visitation about halfway. We only, we're doing really well for a tiny park. We're in the 200 range
That's
as far
cool.
as rankings. Yep. And we also just did a virtual tour, and that is the link is on our NPS National Park Service website. So it's nps.gov/Waco. Easy to remember. And just scroll on down, and there's a chance to do what's called a virtual tour, where you can click and see up close down in the bone bed. And really cool little pop-up menus will give you information about the fossils that you're pointing at, and it's a nice tour.
And also, I think a way for folks to check off things and kind of be involved in their visit when they actually have their
Yes.
on-site visit.
Right. Yep. The National Park Service is really good about getting a full experience, and they really want people to enjoy. This is a wonder. People around the world envy U.S. citizens because we have the National Park Service. Our parks are iconic, and it's a really good way to get people to go to multiple parks and experience similar things in all of these very different parks. So, Yep.
Yeah. In fact, we were in Arizona, went to Montezuma's Palace. You know, I had been there several times to Sedona, just never taken the time to go. This, last trip we did, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's just an easy little loop to walk around.
By using the app?
Well, no. We actually visited the site. But yeah, the National Park Service, I mean, they know what they're doing.
They do. Yep.
They've got it done right. What do visitors need to know before coming? What do you have any advice?
Depends on the time of year.
Well, then there's that.
Yeah, because Texas heat right now, and it's very wet. The main thing that people want to know is this indoors or outdoors? I know a lot of people, when you hear you're going to a dig site, a fossil site, you have some imaginations running wild about, dusty hikes off into the distance and having to climb and make these difficult, treks. And that's just not the case at Waco Mammoth. We have 2 buildings, one of which covers the fossils, and it's air conditioned, and it's only 300 yards apart from the other building. So it's an easy walk, paved trail, and you go inside an air conditioned building and get to look down on real fossils. It's an easy trip, all handicap accessible, and we just want you to come, share the wonder of these mammoths with us.
And if you want to, walk the trails and have a picnic, and you can bring your dog, right?
Absolutely.
Clean up after it. It's very family friendly place to go visit and hang out, spend some time. And you can say, yes, I have been there.
Yep.
and
Mark that off.
And certainly recommend it to anyone who comes to town. This is just really a gem for Central Texas.
And we are quite well located too in, I think, like reference to other national park units in Texas. There are 16, and they're all kind of around the edges of Texas, but we're smack in the middle,
right,
on a well-traveled interstate between 2 good-sized airports, Dallas and Austin. So our traffic is excellent. We're just super, we got lucky, I guess, in our location. But I don't know, would you consider Mammoth dying right there lucky? Who knows?
Well, not so much for them.
Not for them,
not
but
for
for us, yeah.
Well, and I remember reporting in 2015 when it received that, and Congress
Huge.
said, yes, that was a very big deal when that was signed into law, and we became a national monument. I think it's kind of remarkable when you think about how many years preceded that.
It took a long time.
That it was just like a tent that was covering that, and that vandals didn't get in there and mess stuff. I mean, it's really kind of remarkable.
It is absolutely a testament to the Mayborn Museum, the Waco Mammoth Foundation, Baylor University, the Strecker. Though, they did a lot of studying, did a lot of preservation, and it was absolutely kept a secret. Didn't want it to be well known yet, and for a time. It was, like you said, under a tent, surrounded by a chain link fence. And the only way the public could see anything about the Waco Mammoth site was an exhibit at the Mayborn Museum. And that exhibit is still there. But that used to be the only glimpse into what was going on out there. When the significance of the herd was studied by Calvin Smith, that's about the time all of our thinking heads, here in Waco said, This is important. This is scientifically important, and we need to preserve it. So the Park Service was called in as a consultant, back in 99, 2000. And we it only took about 15 years to get a federal designation. But
it was a long process. And we cannot leave without talking about the local support and the local group of people that raised a lot of money to make this happen.
Those initial partnership
Mm-hmm.
is what made Waco Mammoth. And from Sam Jack McGlasson, who owned the land and donated it to the city, to a landowner who let people dig on his land prior to that, to a foundation who was able to raise $4.5 million.
That's a lot of money in a town the size of Waco when you think
Right.
about it.
Right.
And the same people that give, they give to everything else in
yes.
town. It's a relatively small pie.
Yes, indeed.
So I recall that was a very big deal when
It
they
is.
were able to get, because you had to have that seed money, I guess it was. You had to have a certain amount.
Right. And everything was built per NPS standards, National Park Service standards,
Yeah.
with their consultation. So it's very high quality. And it is 99.9% private money out of people's pockets.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that has happened to us before. Okay, shut up. And that was a very good. In fact, okay, I'm going to wrap it up now. As a matter of fact, oh, Raegan, it's been so much fun talking to you about the Waco Mammoth National Monument.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to end these visits with a questionnaire. It's similar to the one the late great James Lipton used on Inside the Actors Studio.
Oh, boy, I loved
you know
that.
about that. All right, what's your favorite word?
Science. I love science. It means that's my career. That's my education. That's what I do for other people. I want to teach them very good science.
What's your least favorite word?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say something like apathy, not caring,
Mhm.
just such a negative connotation.
Yeah.
I don't want that in my life.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Well, creatively, I have a hidden artist inside of me. I've worked actually 8 years as a self-employed artist. So I love local art, and I like abstract impressionism. Who knew?
Interesting.
That makes me happy.
Oh, that is cool. That is cool. Well, what turns you off then, spiritually or emotionally or creatively?
Dishonesty, I think, maybe disloyalty, I think would be a better term. I've been very lucky in my career to have worked for a good length of time everywhere I've worked and had other people around me in my workplaces that feel the same passion and energy for what they do. I've just been so lucky. And so disloyalty, the person that would be like, it's just a job, 6 months and I'm out of here. That one, that gets me every time.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah, that's not good. What sound do you love the most?
My kids laughing. Of course. That's an easy one. I can't be a luckier person on earth. I have an amazing family.
What is your least favorite sound then?
Well, as of last night, it's my husband snoring. Didn't get much sleep last night, honey. I love you.
Oh, well, okay. We'll leave that there. What, I mean, you've done something you always knew you wanted to do since a little girl, but what other profession would you like to try?
Ooh, I've always known that there's two, actually. I would be a forensic scientist. I love forensics.
Mm-hmm.
Or
That's kind of what they're doing now,
It
in a
is.
way.
Yeah, but I'm talking like the gruesome, crime solving.
Oh, yeah.
The yucky stuff.
Mhm.
That intrigues me. It's
Hmm,
weird.
very
Or
good.
a Hollywood set designer and decorator. Go figure.
I think that's great.
There's a lot of art involved there.
Oh, yes.
And I'm
yeah,
just-
visual,
Mhm. Yep.
perceptions of what. Very good. What profession do you know you would not want to do?
A physicist.
Well, that's science.
That's because physics. I understand physics. I only say that because right now the president of our foundation, his in a former life, was a demolition physicist, and I always think, boy, I would mess that up. And if you mess that up, that's bad.
Yeah.
That maybe because it would be considered really high pressure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Random.
That's a new one for me on this, I have to say. All right. But the last question, what do you want to hear God say to you as you arrive at the pearly gates?
you've done good work. You've made a difference, and you have paid it forward. Congratulations.
Oh, Raegan, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And anything, how can folks find the monument?
Well, we are in the city limits of Waco, despite what some people think. We are just north, considered North Waco, 6220 Steinbeck Bend Drive. Easy to get
marked
there.
beautifully.
Yep. Or
really
you can
nice.
always, go to that old NPS app and they'll give you directions and take you right there. We're open 7 days a week, every day 9 to 5. We are only closed 3 days a year: New Year's Day, Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Day.
Okay. Very good. All right. Thank you. Doing all the good work. Thank you so much, Raegan.
Thank you for having me.
Central Texas Living is part of the Rogue Media Network family. Be sure to check out their other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate us 5 stars on iTunes and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Living, the podcast.
Hello, and thank you for tuning into KNOW Waco. I am your host, Debbie, here to help you get in the know about Waco. So you may be asking yourself, why am I here? I'm here to be your tour guide through Waco. I'm here to tell you all the goings-on in and around Waco. I'm going to give you the 411 on what's happening, what's going on, and what events you should go to. This is your host, Debbie, signing off. Now that you know, go. Just go, Waco.
You are going on a run.
Are you building a new business while managing a family? Are you tired of trying to balance home and work and everything seems to be coming up short? Then there's a podcast made just for you. Baking Your Business from Scratch is where we create the perfect recipe for building a successful business while managing your home and family with love. Come join us and see for yourself.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.